It's a panel on the increasing role of technology in impact investing. The moderator will be Nena Dokuzov, who is the CEO of the Nordung Blockchain Hub from Slovenia. Slovenia is very active in the blockchain, and I already know that the discussions here will end up in blockchain. So whoever is interested to hear more and to learn more, and this is a hot topic, you should decide about coming late to the lunch or staying here. We will not limit the time. So the important is that all is heard. Nena is here. The next panelist is Steven Peters. Peters is an expert in impact investing, and he is the managing director of Sanzaru Initiatives. Apart from technologies, Peter is very knowledgeable about the gender lens, so you will can ask him everything and listen. Vlado Milošević is the next panelist, outreach and advisory from the co-founded Slovenia. This is a blockchain guy. And we have Simon Sovic from CHERRIO, same thing. So please take a seat, and Nena, go ahead. So we are 12:20 now, and we should stick to half an hour. Maybe if we are ready to 1:45 or 1:50, we will be at time for lunch.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I would like to ask you just for a bit of attention. I know we are close to lunch, but we have a very interesting speakers here, so I suggest you to put some attention to our round table. First, the panel will be divided in two parts, but it is compatible with everything. So if we talk about social impact, and impact investments and angel investments and blockchain investments, we can find one common word, and this is value. So if we go and create the value in the right way, even if we take into account the angel investments, they are assessing the value that should be created in a certain period of time. Also in impact investing, it should be created in certain period of time. And blockchain is even more oriented in value-added operations. So maybe Mr. Steven Peters, when I was looking to the concept of your company and into the concept of your mission, it was very interesting to see how you define your ambitions through that monkey concept. And could you describe a bit how that concept is compatible or goes or is in compliance with value, impact assessment, and social impact at the end of the project which you are investing in?
Sure, happy to. So my company name is Sanzaru, which is basically from Japanese. It refers to the philosophy that is the wise monkeys. So essentially, in English, this is don't speak evil, don't hear evil, don't see evil. In English, unfortunately, that has a little bit of a negative twist where it says turn a blind eye. But in Japanese, this is actually how they would describe the golden rule. So do not do onto others what you want to do on yourself. So it's a little bit more detailed in a sense where you have the two monkeys that say don't do evil, don't speak evil, and the other two say don't listen to evil, don't see evil, where it's basically also incorporating the inaction that comes with having impact and having something more positive in that sense. So that's kind of the philosophy of the firm. How does this actually translate into impact is essentially how I approach my entrepreneurs, how I do my angel investments. I tend to say, for instance, I talk to the team, I don't necessarily only go with their background and how they do. I actually delve much more into their background. How do they grow up? What are their values? What do they base it on? What is driving them to actually pursue this type of impact that they're looking for? Ultimately, I think impact is something very personal, and to be able to push the envelope on impact investing, a lot of times, you need something that drives you a little bit more than just financial returns and, you know, the entrepreneurship and the fact that you like that necessarily. So that's kind of how it translates.
Okay, thank you very much. But if we go on with that financial returns and types of measurement, how do you evaluate the projects that you are going to invest in? Maybe just to point out that for social enterprises and social economy enterprises, we have a possibility of investors, private, public, or the community, but the community is usually not treated as investor, but as a carrier of social impact. So what do you see, how do you evaluate the project with regards of social impact and then decide either to invest or just support or being a partner of that type of project?
I think with any impact investing, it's key to have intentionality from the beginning. So working with the entrepreneurs themselves to design a couple of metrics, a couple of reporting points that they would keep on reporting to over the life of the investments, and obviously having these discussions with them to see how can we manage it. It's more than just measurement. It's all about having that feedback loop in place where they say, right, this is the impact I've had, how can I augment it, how can I strengthen, is there a link between the financial return that I'm getting, the traction I'm getting with my customers from a commercial point of view, with maybe the impact that I'm creating at the same time, and basically figuring out reinforcing loops in that point of view.
Okay. Okay, and the last question for the first round. Have you set the methodology for assessment of the project that are having at the end impact and value that is creating impact?
The problem with early stage investments is that the entrepreneurs will only have this much bandwidth to really focus on impact reporting and management. So I tend to keep it lean, light touch, but at least have a continuous discussion over the years that I am invested and advising them in that process. Ultimately, I think if they get to a much greater stage where I would step back as an angel, I would probably advise them to go more for the standard frameworks in that sense and actually bulk it out, and when their company is also ready to carry that burden. Let's put it this way.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we continue with our Vlado Milošević, he's a representative of the Slovenian accelerator for blockchain startup companies. I have to say in the beginning that Slovenia has put very much effort to develop the blockchain concept and introduce it into the economy and into the public sector as well. Why it is connected with the impact? Because it has a great impact to the society. It makes the society more lean, the business processes more lean, and the more productive whole economic and social system in the state. And if we are small, but not small enough, not to be big enough, I think that we can support either business or startup companies and the state when wanting to develop that type of investment. So please, Vlado, you are a representative also of supporting environment. Can you tell us How did environment developed in the last 1 year? Because it has huge growth in the last 1 year. You received a lot of project proposals to be financed through initial coin offering. How do you evaluate those projects, and at the end, maybe how you come close to that social value propositions that is also very important, and that is self-sovereignty, identity, transparency, trust, immutability, and this intermediary. So can you just summarize a little bit?
Sure, yes. So Co-Founded is, in the last year, Co-Founded actually evaluated approximately 100 blockchain companies per month. And we have started 10 token crowd sales. We've also done developing, legal advising and all that. And this year we turned into a fund, actually. So last year we were kind of giving technical knowledge and legal knowledge to the companies, learning about the landscape. We learned that every 3 months the ICO landscape changes. Right now it is very hyped up. If we compare it to a standard business landscape where 5% of companies, startups survive the first 2 years, here it will be less than 1%, because in addition to these companies being startups, they also have the added problematics of a new technology, which is blockchain. Now, we firmly believe that this blockchain will stay. It will have a big impact, especially on social parameters of any society, because it creates something that is immutable, something that cannot be changed. If used properly, and please let's forget the hyped projects, if used properly, blockchain is a tool where you can record something that happened, and then everyone can see it and no one can really change it, and you can even still now see the first transactions of Bitcoin or Ether or whatever. And now imagine putting that impact into social projects where whoever needs something can get it directly, and no one will benefit from, you know, taking a donation and putting it somewhere else. So we hope that this is what will happen. And as far as Slovenia goes, right now actually 2% of the entire population is working in blockchain-related industry. 2% of people are trading with cryptocurrency, 1% are supporting ICOs, and just in the last year we raised $0.5 billion in blockchain startups, which is crazy. And because we have such a good cooperation with the government, and because the company is so small, so all the limbs, everyone is so close together, we can adapt to these very rapid changes fast. We cooperate, and actually companies are flocking to Slovenia to work on the blockchain projects. But as Ms. Nina mentioned, there are still a lot of challenges out there, and we really, really hope that blockchain can be used for social impact and impact investing. Yesterday there was a great panel on that, and there still aren't any parameters in place in Slovenia for that, but hopefully we can convince traditional investors and even the blockchain companies who are raising vast amounts of money to dedicate some of that money towards social goals or environmental goals. Me personally, I think that should be a law. There should be a law that says this many percent should be dedicated for social impact, for social responsibility, for environmental responsibility, because at the end of the day that is something that everyone should do personally. So hopefully we can help with that. So right now, Co-Founded, we have prepared the next seed round where we will support any blockchain company that has any interest in helping socially or environmentally as well. We will do seed rounds. We'll also do Series A and B rounds this year. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Vlado, you were also the mentor in our last hackathon for blockchain for social impact, which we had in Davos. But first, let me ask you something. If we go from the market value of the project through financial value of the project, then we come to social value of the project that can be either economic or environmental or social. How do you, for example, how do you evaluate the project, the social value of the project at the end? As we know that also traditional companies can have that social, environmental, and economic. It's called sustainable, and it's quite sustainable value of the project, so it produces at the end sustainable business. How do you see this through blockchain technology and the use of blockchain technology?
So that's a good question. Actually, we are still learning about how to parameterize this. We go case by case. We get projects from all over the world, and it's different for every case. Just as an example, we did a very good, I think worldwide, the best research article on energy impact of mining, of proof of work blockchains versus regular fiat currency. And it turns out that it does consume a lot of energy, but fiat still consumes more. Just as an interesting thought to help me with my point, did you know that there's a company that's in charge of transporting fiat currencies and precious metals from central bank to local banks and back every single day? So fiat money has to be printed, has to be cut, has to be transported to central banks, and from central banks every day to local banks, and then whatever is the surplus, they transport it back. So at the end of the day, every single banknote that you have consumes a lot more energy and costs more than it's worth. Every single one, even the 500 euro. So, to make my point, if we are talking to companies that are helping, for example, to lower the money of fiat notes, banknotes, for example, in India, there are quite a few, and in Africa, that's a very good environmental impact. So we would help with that. So in some cases, we try and look on what the environmental impact is. For example, we worked with a big project called We Power. We parted ways later. They went on to raise 90 million or something. But we found out that the environmental impact might not be so good. And we had to part ways after 7 months of working with them. And then, for example, there are companies that want to use blockchain to trace the money. So if someone donates the money, they want to make sure that the money gets exactly to the people who need it. To do that, they need to be on the ground. They need to go to impact zones, to all those areas where something happens. And they need a lot of money to do that. And but that's a good example of a project. But as I said, we are learning. There was a lady that had a very good presentation yesterday. I don't remember the name, unfortunately, but she mentioned some parameters of impact investing, and I would encourage anyone to maybe list through the almanac for yesterday's sessions, because that was a very good lecture. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vlado. As I said before, we had a hackathon. We selected 12 teams from Slovenia and 8 teams from Davos, and during the World Economic Forum in Davos, the teams were presented. The hackathon was intended to support sustainable development goals with the blockchain technology and to find the solutions how blockchain technology could help to achieve SDGs 2030. So one of the best solution and one of the most inspiring project, or exactly the most inspiring project from Slovenia that was awarded also from the Future Hack team and from our Prime Minister, Dr. Miro Cerar from Slovenia, was CHERRIO project. So please, Simon, if you can explain what was the magic of that CHERRIO project. There was a lady before asking who donated this year or last year some money. How do you treat donations through that CHERRIO project? Maybe first about the concept and then about the blockchain used for that concept to solve the problem.
Hi. So we're CHERRIO. We're actually a blockchain solution for charitable donations. And an easy way to put it would be to say that we're like a blockchain Kickstarter for charity projects. So just imagine any charitable projects can be listed on our platform, and they can collect cryptocurrencies. And then the benefits for them are that suddenly all these projects are traceable, it's transparent, you can see where all the money is going because we have the flow done. For the donors, the good thing is that they also have an integrated anti-fraud system where the community actually votes for how the funds get allocated. So at every point in time, every key stakeholder of our platform knows where the money is. We also have every project that gets listed has a smart contract, has its own Ether wallet, and you can always see how much is in there. Also, what we do is when an organization lists a project on our platform, after the project is finished, the donors who donated in the process, they decide whether the way the organization used the money is good or not. And if it's good, we always release the funds immediately, and we release all the funds. But if the community voted that the funds weren't used correctly, we only leave them 40%, and the rest of the 60% get donated to emergency funds. And these emergency funds are used for natural disasters, something that happens, acutely, that happens very fast, and that you need a very fast response. And we believe that blockchain is also good for that, for fast responses. And in these times, the blockchain community has been proven to actually come together and actually has been growing in the way of gathering donations. In our research, we found that there's an international organization that in the last year received $70 million in cryptocurrencies. And this is a tenfold increase since the year 2015. And it's actually their fastest growing asset. So we see that people want to donate cryptocurrencies, and with our platform, we just help them do this and actually make everything traceable and transparent.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe Stephen, what you hear, would you, for example, invest in that type of project just as a market investor or as a partner, or what do you think about that concept?
I very much like the concept in that sense. It's a little bit almost a blended finance point of view of having at least, if the impact wasn't there on one side, then at least it gets allocated or at least well done. So in that sense, you have a kind of self-balancing methodology where you'll always make sure that there's impact, at least at the level of the hackathon itself, right?
Okay.
So.
Fine. Maybe to point out what is connected with that social return on investment.
I think it's very much possible to put it in a smart contract in that sense. I think the difficulty is that you need to define very clearly upfront what would be the trigger points and what is the definitions. So at least the taxonomy is the same and your trigger points are very clear. And who defines those trigger points and when they get reached. I think that's the key elements here, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's with the smart contract. But what we also found, or what we're trying to do at CHERRIO, is that we also leverage the community. So the community of donors, once a successful project has been done, they get these organizations have to submit sort of like a proof of progress of what they've done with the money. And if the money wasn't spent well, if it was irrational completely, if there was no impact at all with the evidence that they've provided, then the community is going to vote them out. So in the future, they won't be able to make any more such projects on our platform. So in this sense, we're trying to ensure social impact by sort of having this community effect of, you don't want to go against the community because they're going to blacklist you even more than anybody else could.
Okay, this is very good point, because there is a main difference between social impact investment in social economy and social impact investment in blockchain economy or distributed economy. It is a matter of community. in the theory, it is known that the community within a social impact or social economy does not create financial investment. And here in blockchain community, it's opposite. The community creates investment. So what would you suggest? This is the last question. How we could override this disparity between one and the other, as we know that both in parallel create the same effect and the same impact at the end. Vlado, maybe you first and then we finish with that round.
Such an easy question.
Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing would be to educate people. As far as blockchain community goes, it's true that there is a lot of funding there and a lot of money, but I think most of the people that are in it right now are speculators, unfortunately. So hopefully with some regulation and some of the things that we are doing as well, we will separate that layer of people or interests that want to speculate. So that's the first thing. So regulation and education of people that, first of all, if you're a startup, there is absolutely no need, unless there's something very special, there is no need to raise upwards of $5 million or euro, whatever. That will only that will negatively impact the entire ecosystem. If a company raises too much, first of all, you give a new team of people 10+ million, or imagine 100 million, you can imagine what happens with that. They cannot handle it. It's a much bigger challenge than anyone can imagine. Everyone is thinking, oh, the 5 of us are getting 100 million, everything is going to be great. No, it's not.
Okay.
Try employing 10 people and you will see what happens. And then what happens, other companies try to follow your suit, and then in 2 years a lot of people will be disappointed because, of course, if you get 100 million, you have to create some added value. Okay. And the other thing is just for the social impact, again, education and regulation. We need to teach people and maybe kind of force them to put some money into our foundation, which is the society we live in and the environment that we inhabit. So.
Okay, great. Yeah. Steven, one sentence, please, because we are very
sure.
out of time.
I think in this case, it's still such a nascent field, so early stage from how it actually is going to evolve. Like blockchain itself has been around for a certain amount of years, but social impact blockchain is a very new concept and it still needs to be defined. I think that is actually the first step in the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as well, like Vlado said, currently a lot of ICOs are just a cash grab. But we see in this new field coming up that's social impact in blockchain, and I think this is the actual use case, or a great use case of blockchain technology, and I think this will actually help the world be better.
Great. Help the world be better. One question, if you have any questions.
Yes, there is.
Please.
Sorry, I was a bit late actually.
2 questions we have.
I apologise if you already answered this question during your speech. Usually when corporates do charities, there are tax benefits. So I was wondering how this is going to work in your business model, where you can use
Tax
blockchain for charities. So how the corporates then be able to use the tax benefits, for example?
So this is going to only be possible when there's some sort of regulation. And when there is regulation, then we're going to know what corporations can do in terms of donations also in cryptocurrencies, and based on that, that's how we're going to do it.
Okay, and another question.
Sir, my name is Mrs. Fatima. I came from Senegal. I am the president of African Businesswomen. We have a new project. We would like to build green villages to give job to young people who go to immigration. The villages have social housing, agriculture area, poultry, industry, etc. to young people, because Africa will be built by Africa, and we have to make to establish partnership with others. Donc, do interest to is the financing of this project. Thank you very much.
Vlado, can you? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I propose, because this is quite complex, it's a project, I propose maybe later, if you're not in a hurry for lunch, we can exchange cards and maybe say a few words. But there are quite a few projects like this, and it's a great example of how you can do social impact. There's definitely room for that. And maybe for the lady that asked the question before, just to be clear, are you asking if the company donates in cryptocurrency or if they donate at all? What is the impact of tax benefits?
Yeah, exactly. If they donate in cryptocurrency.
Well, right now, if you're a corporate, right, for example, that's also good for CHERRIO, and you want to donate and you want to get tax benefits, you can still do it in fiat, and then the startup or whatever company is dealing with it can convert it later. So you are still liable to get the tax benefits because you donated in fiat. So as a company, you get a write-off, and the startup that is gathering the money can then take care of, exchanging the crypto to the fiat to crypto. Sorry.
So there are two more questions. We will allow all the questions, but it's you take the responsibility. You're using your lunch break. So who wants to go for lunch should go. Please.
Who has the next question? Stefan, give them the mic, please.
So this is Stefano Tresca. I'm a FinTech and ICO advisor and investors. And I'm a founding member of a FinTech incubator in London. So we're quite dealing with blockchain lab, and everything from 2012, I believe. Question mostly to Slovenia. I've organized, in the last 6 months, I've organized a few ICO in Singapore, Isle of Man, and Zug, because of course at the moment they are probably the best jurisdiction. Well, they were, since Singapore is not anymore from November. So of course I have a direct interest in what Slovenia is doing. And my question is, the Slovenian startups, are they incorporating the company in Slovenia, and what's your issue with fiat investment? Because at the moment, the biggest issue with ICO is when investors invest in fiat and this has to be converted, and maybe then it's a security, and then if a security FCA or CAC in the US can be quite annoyed about that, you can go to jail. That's not a good feature for a project. So just briefly what you're doing, and maybe I will introduce with an email later.
Yeah, I'm sure Nina can also follow up with this, but right now the first European company that was incorporated in Europe and works on blockchain is actually ours. It was the first one. So we are cooperating. We currently have a bank account in a Slovene bank. So the thing that you need to do to take into account that you don't break any kind of laws anywhere, the first thing you need to do, there are two things. One is full KYC. If you don't have full KYC, know your customer, of all your investors, if you don't know where the money is coming from, you will not be able to open a bank account anywhere. So if you're raising funds for your blockchain company, make sure that you have a KYC process in place. Basically, that's a tool that you put in your raising round that prompts everyone, asks everyone who wants to invest, please give us a copy of your passport or ID, tell us where you're from, and yeah, that's one thing, KYC. The second one is, which is very reasonable actually, you have to make sure that the token, the coin, whatever you are creating, is not a security. Because if it is a security, then there should be a lot more regulation and legislation in place. The governments all over the world are trying to take care of people who are investing in securities. So imagine that all of these companies that have now been raising billions through blockchain would be securities. I mean, that would have very negative impact. So it's understandable that the United States and some other countries are saying that if you issue a security in blockchain, your token, it's illegal by federal law. So two things, so make sure that there's KYC, make sure that your token is a utility token. If it is not a utility token, make sure to contact your government representative or ask an advisor, for example, like us or some other companies that have legal offices all over the world, that have securities and blockchain lawyers, to check where you can use a security as a blockchain token, because that is also possible. It is a possibility, but it takes a lot more money and time. But it's not always a negative thing. Our belief is that in the future, and already now, actually, most tokens are some kind of securities. So there will be some kind of hybrid of security, utility, and security. There are very, very few utility tokens. So basically, I don't know if this, does that answer?
Yeah.
One of the things, I was last week in Belgrade, and there I was talking with Carlos, I forgot his last name, but he's from Seedcamp. And he actually said that Seedcamp, for example, they have one of the funds they have is a very high risk one, and they actually invested as an institutional investor in an ICO, but they could only invest because it was a security token. So actually, what we're seeing now is that institutional investors, they prefer the security token, because the LPs, they won't let them.
They're regulated.
Exactly. Yeah. The LPs, they won't let them invest in utility tokens. So just something that's also coming up in this space.
Yeah, well, the problem is what is a security token, because I would say, I'm a lawyer myself. I'm from so I would say that 10% of the token are very clearly security, 20% are very clearly utility, whatever is in the middle. It's probably not a security in the Isle of Man, it's probably a security in New York. So I was quite interested about what Slovenia is doing, because I'm very impressed that the first company was based in Slovenia, but personally I don't know, and I'm in this space, so I want to know more about it.
We are still trying to find the answers and the compatibility with the EU legislation, as it is wider than Slovenian is. So we are in negotiations with 4 regulators, 4 main regulators, and the negotiations are in ongoing phase. So what would be at the end the result, we will be very glad to share with you and inform you. Is there another question?
Yes, the gentleman.
The gentleman?
This is Gulam from Bangladesh. I run a venture capital. Impact investment, we should not be always look for the profit, because we already consider impact would be some social impacts. What is happening is that we are getting a big opportunity. So we have the greatest opportunity right now, because if we can connect a new generation who are working blockchain to solve some problems. So for instance, Bangladesh is the largest country in terms of population density. We invented microfinance. And if we can connect with the right investment and the right problem happening, we can solve many international problems which will be replicated. So my recommendation would be, in the future we should have a ranking system, like in the carbon trading, we have a company who carbon footprint. So social impact investment should have a kind of ranking system, point system. So with UN and agreed by everybody, people can have some sort of ranking that this investment could be also resold later on another market. But now my question would be how we can connect this, the talent and the market and the fund for changing the future.
Let's have it like a challenge for the next debate. So I would really like to thank you for all the questions and the debate we have, and we have a good appetite. So thank you very much again.